Welcome to the Compost Pile, a podcast where we break down gardening, homesteading, and more. Join your hosts, David Poole and Aaron Barnhill, as they pile up information and break it down so that you can be more successful in the garden.
Hey, welcome back to the Compost Pile, your podcast for all things gardening and homesteading. With me, as always, is my co-host, David Poole, owner of Mid-County Farm and Feed. He's the expert. I'm the guy who knows next to nothing, and I'm here to ask questions. And today, I'm going to be asking questions about a food forest. What in the world is a food forest? This is actually something that one of our viewers asked about, and I have to say that I agree. I know next to nothing about this topic.
So I'm not 100% expert on food forests, but it is essentially it's a concept. And so a food forest is the idea that you are intentionally designing your space, or say your landscape or your homestead, to mimic nature. So mimic like the forest.
Yeah.
But intentionally using harvestable, edible items.
Like in substitute.
Fruits.
Okay.
Herbs, vegetables, and then even like maybe nuts. And also it doesn't necessarily have to be solely for personal use. We could be using certain species of plants that are food for wildlife.
Yeah, like birds
birds, squirrels, whatever it may be, because that may be helping us achieve the growth and harvesting of what we do want that might become prey to things. Like squirrels, they'll eat all kinds of stuff if you let them.
Yeah.
But if they've got a good food source that they're accustomed to and is natural around their
they really
space.
They help my yard stay clear of all the acorns that get dropped. So they're doing me a service.
Yeah, they do. I pick up enough mini oak trees, but they do a good job overall.
Yeah, I pick up a bunch, but there'd be a lot more without them. So
I mean, what it's essentially like, when we go out there and we're looking at whether it's just a residential home, and you go out and you look, and landscaping is typically looked at as ornamental, aesthetic applications to maybe drive up the value of a property or the home, or just make it more appealing. And we can actually accomplish that same thing with usable, harvestable fruits, veggies, herbs, harvestable plants for maybe medicinal uses.
So it's kind of just making smarter choices,
absolutely,
in like your landscaping or your yard.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you're setting yourself up to be able to have something harvestable for the majority of the year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost like succession planning. You're being able to get something on a consistent basis year round.
I'm a big fan of succession planning. Big fan of that.
And you're also using plants and working together. So part of it, when you think about like a forest, what do you have in a forest that you don't have in a home landscape typically?
A canopy.
Yeah, you
usually have a canopy.
You don't have layers.
Yeah.
So part of a food forest system is creating layers. So whenever you are getting out there and you start looking at creating a landscape, some people, they don't want that large canopy layer, but that large canopy layer is really helpful. It still falls back to the previous episode about like drought and bare
rainfall
soil
and compaction.
It helps dissipate rainfall. It helps use up excess water. It helps create shade.
And also, the more shade that sits on your rooftop, the less your air conditioner has to work.
So we can use this in a lot of ways. So creating this like layered system essentially can help us with principles of permaculture as well. Food forest is not just about permaculture, but having overstory and understory plantings. We could be designing this to provide shade on a house, to lower our electricity bill during the hottest time of year, or grow something in the winter that creates mass and helps hold in heat. So
that's true, because in the wintertime, if you have trees in your yard and you look out, and you'll notice that the ground under the trees don't frost over.
Yep.
Because it's creating sort of like a thermal little bubble there.
And if you live in a really cold area, like trees that go dormant allow more light to go through it.
That's true.
And then it warms up the exterior of a home. So you reduce heating.
Man,
so it's
nature just really got it covered, don't it?
Kind of a tangent, it's somewhat related to a food forest. But when we're planning out a space, I mean, if we're starting anew or maybe we're making adjustments, like we should look at what's going to take the most space. Look at the overstory. So maybe we don't have room for, a 50-foot tall, tree.
Okay.
That's not realistic for everybody.
It's also old too, right? It takes a long time to grow that. Yeah.
But we could start off with faster growing species of maybe native trees, flowering trees that support pollinators. We could start off with just medium to large size fruit trees. So a lot of your stone fruits can get like 15 to 25 foot tall and wide. We can be utilizing those.
Not an ornamental pear though. No. Not an ornamental Bradley pear. We don't want that.
So we could be putting, like, for my instance, if I think about my own property, I could be lining my back fence line with taller growing fruit trees that are going to help provide a little bit of shade in the hot afternoon sun based on the orientation that I have. And then I can plant those in, and then I can come in and I can layer in lower growing things. So I could put in, instead of like ornamental shrubs, I could do blueberries. I could do blackberries. Depending on where you live, depending on how many chill hours you get, you might be able to have all kinds of other options of like medium height growing plants. Then you could be layering in there all kinds of perennial herbs that don't necessarily have to go in a garden bed. They can be in the landscape. And you could be layering in even vegetables that are, they're not in rows. They're intentionally placed around other plants that have like requirements. So that like similar water requirements, similar sun requirements, similar feeding requirements, so that you're using the least resources and you're keeping everything kind of happy all at the same time.
Do mushrooms fall in with this sort of concept?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I see people do that under trees, as people grow mushrooms under trees.
It would make sense. I mean, in the conditions.
Shaded, they just need shade. Yeah.
Shade and moisture.
Shade and moisture.
So you basically layering in, and you can also utilize like root crops. You could be growing turmeric.
Oh, yeah. Ginseng and ginger.
Yep. Ginger. So all those types of things can be layered into your landscape. So at the end of the day, you can do it intentionally, but you're giving it a natural flow. I think we talked about pollinator gardens a while back.
We did, yeah. It's been a while.
When we talked, one of the principles of pollinator gardens was layering, flow.
Yeah, because each of those pollinators fly or travel at a different height. And
you're utilizing different plants to complement others, to help protect them, to help bolster their ability to provide you harvestable food all throughout the year. And you're depending on how you lay it out, you have evergreen trees like citrus trees that are be smaller growing, that are going to stay green year round. Then you have others that are going to go dormant in the winter, that you might be able to plant something underneath that requires more winter sun. So you could grow winter bulbs underneath a dormant tree.
Right.
So there's all these factors that work together.
So it's like a holistic idea. That's kind of what you're talking about. Yeah. It's a way to arrange a certain type of plants and intentionally picking certain type of plants over the other.
And then we talked about in our cover crop episode, like just ground covers, living ground covers. You have that final layer in there of utilizing ground covers. So you could plant like sweet potatoes. You could plant
pumpkin. That makes a really good one. Yeah, squash.
So you can create living mulch layers that help cover the soil, that help retain moisture for all those other things that are growing in those areas. So it's all about pairing plants together.
It's pretty neat. So I'm trying to get the idea right. So that means like no strictly ornamental things, like no Japanese boxwoods, right? Maybe a blueberry, maybe a dwarf blueberry, right? Or a lime tree or a lemon tree. Those are kind of bushing, stuff like that. No oleander. because it serves no purpose at all.
And I would say like, and from my concept of like always focusing on diversification of plant species, not having any ornamental species would be kind of counterproductive, because I want pollinators. I want things in there in that space. So I feel that ornamentals do play a role, but I want like flowering ornamentals. I want native plants that are actually going to bring value to the ecosystem, because at the end of the day, we're not planting a garden. We're not planting a landscape. We're creating an ecosystem. Right. We're trying to create something that takes care of
itself. So we want like jasmines. I mean, that's ornamental, that's pollinator,
you could
geraniums.
And you could be utilizing a vining plant along a fence to shade something that doesn't like the hot afternoon sun. So you're supporting native pollinators. Like I could have the purple passion vine. We've seen
it will take over.
And I mean, the amount of fertility caterpillars this year is unreal.
I've had so many butterflies in my yard in the past 2 weeks. It's been really nice.
They ate the plant down to nothing, and then there are no more caterpillars because there's no more food, but now it's growing back.
Yeah.
And I bet you will get round 2. So you can have things in there that have beautification value, but they also
and
need
environmental
to be functional.
value. Right. And functional value. Right. It's both.
And so I think you have to like really stop and kind of plan it out. It's not perfect, but you want it to be natural. Things in nature, they're intentional.
Yeah.
Leaves fall, they cover the ground, they break down. You're not leaving any wasted space. Everything is serving a purpose, from the dead foliage on the ground to the dead leaves of the overstory. They're insulating, they're mulching. So it's a unique way to grow.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to read more about that. I like that, because I'm more of a chaotic gardener.
Yeah.
Some people get really caught up in having straight lines and having perfect symmetry in their raised beds. And okay, I have 3 lines of 6, and I'm not that way. I'll have a raised bed here, one over here, one over here. So I kind of like this method.
The concept supports a living soil better.
Yeah.
Because if you think about like nature in a wooded environment, like no one's fertilizing anything. No one's mulching the plants. All those things are happening naturally. So you're actually supporting a healthy fungi population, bacteria population. So you have balance.
Yeah.
And that's what the concept of like the food forest is you're creating a kind of a naturally balanced system that mimics what you would get out in nature, but being able to take from it at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. I think
that's really cool. I think if it's done right, it could create one of the coolest landscapes around.
Yeah, and it's a functional landscape. It looks good and it's functional and it's healthy.
And especially nowadays in day and age where I'm not sure that most kids know where half the things they eat come from.
Right.
Like, it's a great way for families to be able to teach and learn together how things come to fruition. And I think like the concept of food forest, when you think forest, okay, we think big.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Food forest can happen on a balcony. It can happen in the corner of a backyard. It does not have to be some massive, elaborate plan. It is a built system. You think about like everything that happens in a forest environment didn't just miraculously appear. It grew, expanded, it spread over time.
Yeah.
So how you build your system is the same way. You can use these principles even in containers where you're growing something medium sized to help shield the sun off other things. You can do it in the corner of a yard where you're just starting off with a really small principle of overstory, understory, ground cover. So it does not have to be this massive undertaking.
Yeah.
For me, like I'm thinking like, okay, I got to have it all planned at once, but that's who I am.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't do that. You should start off small, sustainable.
Yeah. My brain's been going since we started talking about this. I'm like thinking about, I think a grapefruit tree is really great because it gets about 25 foot tall, lets a lot of light through. I'm already turning.
If you create a food forest little by little and build it over time, then I feel you're going to be more successful, because if you just throw it all out there, you're hoping that you got it right the first time. And
Yeah.
then when you planted something too close together, you didn't leave enough space and it's choking out this, then you're going to repeat those lessons over and over again, versus being able to watch, observe, do a little bit. Then when you move to the next section, you're like, I'm gonna do this a little different.
That makes a lot of
And,
sense.
it gives you the ability to really kind of think about the plant pairings that you want.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
So
sense.
it's a cool concept.
I like it. I feel like this has been a pretty good intro to that as a concept. And I'm going to play around with that, and I'm going to start thinking a little bit in layers. I kind of already do.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, I think, and it's important that you said that the food forest concept is kind of macro and micro. Right? It's not literally a forest, because now I'm thinking I can even do this in a raised bed garden.
Yeah, I mean, and that really, like, we talked about diversification in a raised bed garden, like not planting all one species in there. It's the same concept, but it's, you can scale it up or down to any setting. And I think that's important. But your end goal is creating natural flow, natural process, and putting something on the table, or putting something usable inside the house.
Yeah, I'm going to take some of these concepts and I'm going to apply it to my yard. I think thinking with this food forest concept can really help someone like me who is chaotic sort of wrangle that and plan my yard a little better. So I'm gonna do that. I appreciate that. Yeah,
man.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. We've learned a little bit. This has been a pretty good intro to food forest. Hopefully we'll have another one over, maybe a part 2 or something where we can talk more on specific concepts, because I really enjoyed this. I hope you guys did too. I hope you learned a little something about food forest. Comment below. Tell us if you have any knowledge on food forests, anything that we might have missed, and we'll see you on the next one.